um, bumping up against the question of next generation vehicles and next generation vehicle power. And today we're going to be talking about just that. It's brought to you today, this program, I should say, by the Greenwich Town Conservation Commission and the Sustainability Committee of the Conservation Commission, as well as the Chamber of Commerce. And we also want to thank the Cos Cob Library for hosting everyone. It is a pleasure to be able to use the library for functions beyond books, isn't it? So we are in a time of dramatic transition in the energy industry. It's marked by new technologies, and of course, it's spurred by the looming threat of climate change due to fossil fuel emissions from everything that uses them. And that, of course, includes automobiles. Greenwich is leading the state of Connecticut with about 1,500 electric cars in town. Now, let me just say that I come from California until a couple of years ago, and you couldn't walk but trip over a Tesla there. So 1,500 is a lot, but you got to see what's happened in other parts of the United States to really believe how big this effort is right now. It turns out that despite 1,500 cars, we've only got one universal and publicly available EV charging station in Greenwich, and that's at the town hall. So today, we're really here to encourage businesses like yours to step in and participate in making EV charging stations ubiquitous. Notably, unlike our traditional consumer gasoline supply network, as I'm sure you know, EV charging presents an opportunity for a lot of different kind of businesses and small entrepreneurs who may happen to have the place for automobiles to park. It also offers new challenges and opportunities for gas station owners about new lines of business and about protecting their old. So everything that gas station owners are going to have to think about is probably going to be changing. So to do all that today, we got a great panel of experts. We've got several who represent key stakeholders in this nascent shift. Before I introduce them, I just want to let you know we're going to hear from each of them in turn over the next 60 minutes or so. And then what we'll do is we'll open up the floor to your questions for the rest of the presentation. You can type questions in the Q&A box that you see the little button for on your panel there. If I happen to notice some that seem particularly timely, like you want a quick clarification or something, I'll see if I can pick those up during the presentations. But we want to try and have a bank of questions as they come for the last part of our presentation, when you'll be able to interact directly with our guests. Starting us off today will be Chuck Brody. He's the Director of Strategy at Tumalow, and this is a company that's really building the next generation of power grid infrastructure. They're controlling and growing a fleet of battery energy storage systems. Second presenter is Paul Young. He's a VP of Sales at Juice Bar. That is a made in USA EV charger a set of products, and they're based right here in Norwalk, Connecticut. I think they're probably the only one based in the United States, Paul, if I'm right. Enoch Lang is a supervisor at Eversource for energy efficiency, and they are rolling out a program basically to subsidize the installation of these EV chargers. And lastly, we're going to be talking with Michael Frisbee, who is an innovator and a executive, I guess the CEO of Noble Gas, which is a New England-based gas station company that's really forward-thinking in what they want to do with the plazas that today are used for pumping gas. So that's our group, and we'll start it off right now with Chuck.
Thanks very much, Anthony, for the introduction, and thank you to all of the participants who've come to listen in and ask questions at the webinar. I wanted to sort of set the stage by talking about an overview of what the opportunity is and how to think about it, how to get your heads around whether EV charging is something that you want to pursue as a business owner. And I think to get that started, one of the things to do is take a look at the current market conditions. As Anthony mentioned, there is one fully public charging station in Greenwich. If you look at the slide in the lower right, you see locations that the Department of Energy sees as public charging stations in and around the New York, Connecticut line around Greenwich. So there's a bunch of other ones that are semi-private. Also, putting Greenwich in context of Connecticut, if not California, again, using sort of the same metrics. So some of these may be semi-public. As of the end of 2021, there were 360 public charging stations, approximately 17,000 registered EVs. And there's a website with Connecticut DEEP driving the adoption of and the promotion of EV in Connecticut. They have a goal of between 125 and 150,000 electronic vehicles within 3 years. And part of the Connecticut program is an EV purchase incentive called Cheaper. I'm going to let Enoch talk about the Eversource program as well. But that's sort of where the market stands right now. And again, I draw attention to the fact that there are a lot of vehicles that go through the corridor through Greenwich. So it's not just the residents of the town that represent a potential market. So moving from the overall market, one of the things I think makes sense for people to think about is who values what amongst the people who or organizations that are part of the EV charging ecosystem. So you've got your end consumer, your vehicle operator, you've got yourselves, the station owner, the proprietor of the business, you've got the utility, and you've got the public policymakers. And the proprietor has to keep the other three in mind in order to achieve his goals with regard, his or her goals, excuse me, with regards to return on investment. And it's going to inform what your investment in physical infrastructure are and what your ongoing costs are. So what I've tried to do is sort of lay out at a high level, the key stakeholder values that each of those constituents has. And again, from a vehicle operator's perspective, they want convenience. They don't want to have to wait too long to get a reasonable mileage charge up for the duration, and it's got to be competitive with fuel. So with those things in mind, and turning again to what is the business owner's set of considerations, again, a sort of quadrant of what is the number and the sort of intensity of charging that you want to be able to provide. What do you think your traffic is going to look like that's going to influence that? What are the applications and administrative processes that you need to put in place in order to be successful and predictable and repeatable? Whether you want to start small and grow, and then looking at what are the things besides the actual charge as an event that your infrastructure might allow you to gain revenue from. So these are things that make this an interesting place to look into, and requires a fair amount of analysis to make sure that you're capitalizing on all the opportunity as well as understanding all the costs. And with the notion of costs in mind, I thought it might be useful to take a minute to talk about sort of the cost comparison of an electric vehicle versus a gas vehicle in order to understand how pricing might fall out. So what I've done is I've tried to look at what is a reasonable mileage sort of so that how far can you go before you have to fill up again one way or another. And I sort of looked at it 240 miles and I took sort of the prevailing rate of costs. The gasoline example is simple. And what I'm trying to do here is give an apples to apples comparison, that being what's the cents per mile that it costs to operate the vehicle from the driver's perspective, and what's the cost to the dealer in order to deliver a competitive price of electricity. So the bottom line on this, I'm not going to walk through all of the details, but again, the 240 miles, how much charge does that require? How fast can you charge? So, looking at it under 30 minutes to get a vehicle charged as being, sort of table stakes. The net of this is that based on Eversource's current pricing for their EV tariff, which would be what a proprietor would engage with a separate meter on their charging infrastructure, they are going to cost about 6.25 cents per mile in order to charge a vehicle to that extent. And if you charge the customer a competitive price, in other words, 16 cents a mile versus the 17.5 at retail gas, you've still got about a 10 cent per mile gross margin as a dealer that you can sort of look at just for the cost of the charge versus what you can get paid by the customer for it. The graph that I've also put on this is to stress the fact that as you increase the number of vehicles that you want to charge and you decrease the duration at which you want to get that accomplished per vehicle, you're increasing the density, the load that you're putting on the utility. And that can increase the cost, the unit cost, if you will, of the service. So it's something that needs to be tracked. Again, I want to leave it to Inuk to talk about the programs that are available, but the pricing model I put here represents, as of January of this year, the electric vehicle tariff that has been set up by Eversource. And obviously that is subject to change based on the public utility regulatory dockets that happen on an annual basis or thereabouts. But this is where we are now. So again, with that in mind, I know that we had expected the primary audience here to be potentially fueling station, gas station proprietors. There are other folks who can participate as business owners. So one of the key things I'd like to leave you with is a couple of key concepts. One is matching your charging service level, how fast you can charge a car, with what type of venue you are. So again, the traditional gas station or rest stop is a quick stop venue, somewhere between 10 and 30 minutes, unless you have some other attraction that keeps people there, like a food court. There are mixed duration facilities such as a fleet depot or a shopping district. And then there's a number of different long visit. People are going to be around for at least an hour or possibly more. So those are making sure that as a business owner, you think, what kind of experience is my customer going to have, and what does that give me the option to pursue as a charging service level? And then the last part is, what is your tariff, and what does that charging duration and intensity mean your load profile is going to be? So that leads to, can I participate in a managed charging infrastructure if the utility has a program for that? And also, should I invest in resources behind the meter, such as solar power behind that meter, energy storage, so that I can manage myself how much the utility has to supply me? So I've tried to put those things forward quickly as a sort of table setting for the information you'll get from our other presenters. I've also got a slide here with some of the resources from which I drew the model that I put together, and also that provide information for the audience to look into things further. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Anthony, and I believe all of the slides are going to be available to participants afterwards. So let me stop sharing and give this back to Anthony.
Thank you, Chuck. That was great to see, get a sense of the opportunities and the costs, and all the considerations and prioritizations that you're going to have to make regardless of what kind of business you are. We are going to be showing slides. As I understand it, Laura, you can nod your head if that's correct, but yes, slides will be shared after the meeting, and we are also recording the meeting. We had a question about that as well. So let's move from the kind of table stakes lay of the land to what kind of infrastructure is required here. Paul Young, as I mentioned earlier, is VP of Sales at a pioneering EV charging company called Juice Bar. So Paul, if you could fire up your slides and let us know a little bit about what kind of products you offer. And it probably makes sense to also, get super basic for people like me, like the difference between, I remember the kind of words you were using were like level 2 charging and all that stuff. So take it away. And of course you were on mute. Yes.
Yes, of course. Can you see my screen okay? I had a little bit of trouble with my new version on the Mac here. Is it okay?
No, we kind of don't. What I see is it just says it doesn't really show a slide now. Can you just show your desktop?
Okay.
Just to point out that, back in the day when Microsoft used to give presentations that were watched around the world, kind of like major events, Bill Gates would get up there and usually have regularly one giant snafu.
How's
There,
that?
that looks great.
Great.
And if
Well,
you'll
thank
just
you.
page through your slides using the carousel there, that'll work.
Yep.
We see the slides as they change.
Great. And just a little bit more about Juice Bar. We are indeed a Connecticut-based company. We have 40 employees here in our state, both high-tech jobs all the way down to loading the trucks in Oxford, Connecticut. We're currently manufacturing 50 to 100 stations a week, depending on the demand. And I can say that the demand is very high, thanks to the programs that are out there and actually the Built in America piece of that. A lot of the other charging station manufacturers are bringing parts in or the whole stations on container ships. So we're in a great place right now in Connecticut. We're so happy that the utilities and the state are supporting EVs. Myself, with 11 years in the industry, I certainly remember years that it wasn't the case. But let's get on to helping you understand the do's about EV charging, the wheres, and the when. And I'm here to tell you that the time to do it is now. Just as recent as a couple of years ago, EV charging was a nice to have. Well, now it's a must have, not only for communities, for commercial property owners and managers. Most importantly, and where I'm seeing the most volume right now, is the residential communities. People are working from home, and the first place that you need to charge is at home. Then you head out into whether it's the store, the workplace, then you top off, but you certainly need to start charging at home. A great stat right here, 36% of US drivers will buy an EV for their next car. Debatable? A couple of years ago, yes. Not anymore. You're seeing the cars out there. All the OEMs are retooling to build and go 100% electric. Just the commercials on the Super Bowl last weekend would certainly tell you that. It's exciting, and let's help you with that. Pricing for the cars is coming down due to scale and the huge investment in battery technology, both on the front end and the back end, what to do with them when it's time to recycle them or repurpose them for sustainable initiatives like microgrids, solar storage, all of that good stuff. Huge need for infrastructure growth, looking to grow to 13 million stations by 2030. And 90% of these will be level 2 charging. Here's where we get into your levels. Now, level 2 is similar to your kitchen range or your clothes dryer, 208, 220. Level 1 would be 110, like the GFI outlet on your kitchen counter or down on the wall that you plug your vacuum into. Level 3 will be direct current charging. A quick explanation of direct current charging is it bypasses the charger that comes on board your vehicle and boosts electricity directly into your battery. A lot of power going directly to the battery. What you see for Tesla stations out along the interstate are level 3. You also see universal stations, not nearly as many as the Tesla stations, and that is the matter at hand and the challenge for all of us. Michael will touch on that a little bit later. He's entering them into his alternative fueling locations where he has both gasoline, high-speed diesel, and EV. 16-to-1 ratio, EVs to chargers. Now, we just went through the fact that people are buying cars. There aren't anywhere near enough charging stations out there. Here's a buyer's wish list right now. They want a property owner, property manager, municipal team. They need affordable, reliable, and scalable EV solutions. One that addresses the current and future needs of their residents, tenants, and increasingly more now, a solution that's incorporated into other technologies such as energy management systems, demand response, and load management. there's only so much power out there, so you have to manage the amount of electricity. EV batteries will become a sponge, soaking up electricity when it's plentiful and cheap, such as time of use charging at the nighttime, and then providing power to offset peak grid or building usage. So you could charge your cars at night, and when you go to work, the time will come, and it's not that far away, when during the time when the air conditioners kick on in the morning at that commercial office space, where you could opt in and actually give some of that power back to the building to help them, your management team and ownership team, avoid peak demand charges. Some of the things it's important to share on this call, just so folks are aware, around the EV charging industry, there are things that don't always go right, such as poor user experience, general reliability and customer service is bad. The hardware is tied to proprietary networks. It's difficult to integrate into building management and other systems. Equipment operating costs are high. Typically, that's your software. In proprietary networks, they can be really high, and it could add at scale a big dollar amount to your operating cost. Poor design, underpowered, not delivering enough power, and lack of cable management. Folks, you may have seen cords just laying on the ground. That is a result of poor cable management systems. Again, just going over the level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 is your outlet, level 2, 208, 220, or 240, depending on the property that you are at. Level 3 typically draws 480 volts AC, and that's power, three-phase power that some properties have, some do not. So level 3, installation of level 3 is a major construction project for those folks that are considering doing that. You may not have the power at your location to do that. Luckily, both Eversource and UI can help with that if it's available. Here's an example of a level 2 installation along a curb line where people, whether it's a municipality, actually this is behind a travel plaza, similar to what Michael's going to talk about. So that's a very, very well done, well protected installation. These are the stations that we're building here in Connecticut. Notice the cord retraction. They're up off the ground. The height of the pedestal is up above the height of a snowplow. So if people are clearing snow and the driver accidentally pushes snow, it will go underneath the juice bar, not push up against it and potentially knock it over. Please allow me to touch on different power outputs within level 2. And these are the stations that we're building in Oxford. 32 amps on the output, 40 amps, 48, and 80. It's important
For
to
a
note,
layman, Paul, what does that mean in terms of how long it takes to get your car charged?
it starts with 32 miles per hour, and then you pretty much jump in increments of 5 to 7 miles per hour from that. And it's also limited by what your onboard charger can take on your car. For instance, a Nissan Leaf usually takes 7.7 kilowatts an hour. And a Tesla right now can take up to 48 amps. So it depends on the car more than the charging station, but it's good for you as a property owner, municipal EV site host to offer, I would say, as much as 48 if you have the panel capacity. A lot of people may or may not have that capacity at their panel or power room. That again is where Enoch is going to talk about that during his presentation. Eversource and UI are both going to help with that in a significant way. Thank you. And the 80 amp units are typically more than what your car can take, unless you have the Porsche or some others. But however, what we're seeing is the medium size vehicles that are commercial vehicles, whether they're going to be used as a platform underneath a electric shuttle or a utility bodied fleet vehicle like the electrician or the municipal DPW may have. Those 80 amp units are able to come off of level 2, 208, 220, and give you more of a boost for those facilities that don't have that 3-phase 480. Helpful so far?
Yeah, we got a couple of questions. I'll just throw them out there for you. How many,
Sure.
so one person asked, how many amps of power are needed? And I think you sort of answered that. Is there a way to quantify how many amps of power both a provider needs and a car needs?
Most of your cars are able to take 32 amps of power up to 40. And then when you get up to 48, now you are getting into the Teslas, the Audis. The progression is going towards that. I'll simply say that going with 32 or 40 is a good route because that'll allow you to stretch what power you have available in your main panel out to more charging spaces. So you have to make that decision. If you have a lot of power, if you're bringing in new service, then you can go for the 48 amp output. However, a lot of properties and a lot of people on this call will be limited in that area. So I would suggest going with the 32 amp, and then you can go ahead and offer more charging spaces.
And then also question was, you mentioned the Tesla charging stations, which are out there. Can other models use Tesla's charging stations, or is that a case of proprietary restriction?
Really good question. Tesla has a proprietary connector, so it's a different shape than the universal one that everyone else uses. And they do that for a lot of reasons. For telematics, for one, they know exactly which Tesla that is that's plugging in. So they really, right now, do not have a way to identify whether another car is an Audi or a BMW or a Nissan Leaf. So they do it on purpose. And Elon has shared all of his patents, but that's one thing that he has kept to himself.
So how would somebody buying your equipment serve a Tesla, or would they not be able to?
Each Tesla comes with an adapter in their glove compartment, and it's a simple donut size adapter. So you plug the juice bar universal connector into that, and then you have the correct Tesla connection. It just plugs into the car, and there are Tesla drivers charging at juice bars all across our country and outside of the country as well.
Great. Thanks,
Good.
Paul.
Okay, software. It's important to touch on software. Let me know if I'm going long here, but you need to manage, monitor, and monetize this activity. And there are software companies that can certainly help with that. And keep one more thing in mind, open architecture. We talked about proprietary networks. That's when you buy the station and you're stuck with the software that comes with it. Well, we believe in open architecture. It's similar to a cell phone where you could load T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T. We have that same thought process. So you pick the software that is best for you, whether it's for your municipality, for your fleet behind the gate. A fleet behind the gate, for instance, may not need all the bells and whistles that a public-facing charger has outside of the library or town hall. And those are the decisions you make, and folks like me and people on my team help you as consultants to decide what is the best fit, both on your ampacity input, your power output, and how you manage and monitor it. Another thing to keep in mind with software is you manage it. There are some owner-operator models out there where people come and rent space and put their vending machine on your property. We currently don't believe in that. We believe that the best way to offer this product is to sell you the station or lease it to you and let you manage it the way you want to. It's an important thing. And this is just a slide that talks about the different software choices.
So that's really interesting. I just want to emphasize that point. So essentially what you're saying is you're selling, the equivalent would be you're selling a laptop computer, but when you sell the laptop computer, it doesn't come with Microsoft Windows or iOS on it. Me as the purchaser, I got to figure that out and you're going to consult on it.
Correct. And the good news is when we have your unit or units, hopefully on the bench in Oxford, we will go ahead and provision them according to the software choice that you made. And even beyond that, we'll go ahead and have the administrative person, whoever's going to manage the dashboard for all of your locations, already built in so that when the electrician gets on site at the community center or over by town hall or outside of the multifamily location, when they're installed and activated, they're immediately going to go out and look for the software company, either through a cellular connection or a data line Ethernet connection, and they are literally plug and play. Then it's just a simple training session for the admin team, either at the property or municipal facility. Here we can see a little peek into the high-end DC units all the way to the right, where you see a kiosk and a power cabinet separate. And those go all the way up to 350 kilowatts and up from there. So there's a lot of power capable of being dispensed, again, subject to what's available and what the vehicle can accept. Questions? I'll touch on software a little bit more. I know that people probably have questions around that. I know that the utilities insist on having reports because they're helping you put the infrastructure and charging out there. But the flip side of that is they want to see the use cases, the power consumed, what's going on, how long are people charging, how much juice are they taking? And all of that is at your fingertips using the software. Branding. Here's a plug for Michael's Noble facilities. Isn't that a great brand right there? Noble EV, Regeneron Pharmaceuticals. So for a municipal location or a multifamily, you can put your brand on the face of the station. You can actually advertise for Sally's Pizza if you like, if you wanted to have Sally's in New Haven sponsor your charger. And good luck with that. Hopefully they will. I'm going to bring you right to the back page here because it's very helpful. Oh, I want to show you this too. This is the installation up at Yankee Candle up in Deerfield. Just love to show that off. Here's a good look. It's a very busy slide, but it'll give you an idea about your turnaround. These will eventually pay for themselves if you're collecting revenue through them. At scale, they will cover their own costs. They'll cover your electricity. They'll cover the software costs, and then it becomes passive income for you. It's not a lot of money. And you need to be aware of demand charges because the demand charges are something that can turn the profit from the vending of electricity into an operational cost that all of a sudden you're not in the profit side, you're on the negative side. Great. Any
Thank
other
you very
questions?
much. Yeah, we'll actually hold questions, further questions until we get through the rest of the presentation, but this is very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Paul. And if you want to drop your screen share, we'll move on to Enoch Leng from Eversource. And Enoch's going to tell us a little bit about the programs they have to make it more cost effective and provide higher incentives for those of you who are in the interest of your business looking to buy an EV charger. Enoch.
Great, thanks, Anthony. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Share my screen. All right. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yep, you're all good.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for the time. Again, my name is Enoch Lenge. I oversee the Connecticut Electric Vehicle Charging Program and efforts throughout Connecticut that we're taking to advance transportation electrification and making charging accessible and available to our customers and to folks like all of us on this call. So this is a joint program effort between Eversource and the other utility company in Connecticut, United Illuminating. So we worked actively with the two utility companies as well as PURA, the public regulatory or utility regulatory authority, to design and implement this program. And what's really unique and exciting about this program is in other states around the country, sometimes there's pilots that pop up here and there. I do want to mention that, this is something that is a full-blown, very comprehensive and inclusive, many different types of charging program. And so it is a nine-year program, so it's here to stay. And it, as you'll see in the upcoming slides, it serves many different types of customers, from residential to public spaces, workplaces, destinations, multifamily, those types of things. So really excited about it. And what is interesting is from the perspective of Eversource, there's a few reasons why we're involved from an electric vehicle perspective and really excited about it. So there's actually a bunch of reasons, but I'll highlight two that are really important for this group. And one is we want to make sure that
So Enoch, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're still just seeing your title slide. Have you moved on?
No, I haven't. I'm just kind of just
Okay, just wanted to make sure
yeah,
we weren't missing something.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you, though. So one main reason is that we want to make charging accessible to customers, to drivers throughout Connecticut. So we really try to be forward thinking. And, if any of the folks on this call have seen what we've done in the energy efficiency space with businesses and residents, we really try to think progressively to offer programs, technologies, resources, and unique ways to engage with our customers on how they use their energy. So from an electric vehicle perspective, we're trying to make sure that we're ahead of the game and providing ways for charging stations to go in at scale very quickly and make them accessible to public, to workplaces, and to many different types of locations. And the other main reason, and it was touched on a little bit both in the previous two presenters with Chuck and Paul, is that we want to make sure from a demand perspective, meaning the load on the grid, that we provide reliable electricity to our customers so that folks' lights and power is on and reliable. And so to do that, we want to make sure that we're understanding the usage patterns, the demand patterns and demand spikes of charging. And so that's why another reason why this program is critical is as we provide incentives and rebates for charging, that we're also tracking the data and looking at the demand to make sure that if we have to curtail demand at different times so that we have a reliable grid, that's an important part of this as well. So I want to just go over what some of the areas are that we are looking to provide this program to. As I mentioned, it's very comprehensive. We kind of broke it out into program areas. And so I'm not going to talk much about residential today, but just want to highlight. These kind of, as I mentioned, this is a 9-year program. These goals here are broken into 3-year chunks. So on the left is Eversource's goals, and on the right is United Illuminating goals. And so what we're trying to do is work with residential customers, multifamily, destination public places. As some examples were given of those. That could be, gas stations. It could be retail spaces, public parking lots, town halls, things like that. libraries that are accessible to the public, and workplace. So as employers are seeing more ramp up for their employees to have EV charging for them, as well as if they're having a light duty fleet used at their work places, that we would provide charging for the light duty fleet as well, that those customers would be using. And last is the category of direct current fast charge that was touched upon, which is the level 3 or more kind of intense, faster charge. And I'll just mention the first 4 areas here are for level 2 charging. And I'm not going to spend much time on this, but this is just kind of, Paul mentioned this already, what the different types of charging are. And so level 2 is in the middle, and that is what the bulk of our program focuses on. And then we also have a strong effort for the direct current fast charge as well. And so one note that is important to note is on the direct current fast charge, almost always this is going to require new metered service. So to run a new dedicated separate metered service and some construction to do so, typically a dedicated transformer for that. There is stations and different spots throughout Connecticut that have already installed these fast chargers. As was mentioned, the Tesla chargers are these types of chargers in public spaces, but there's also non-Tesla direct current fast chargers that are available. And the level 2 charging, there will be times when, as a customer, if you're putting together a scope of work, there'll be times, depending upon the electrical capacity that you currently have available at your property, that you can come off of your existing electrical panel or usage and run charging stations off of those. Or there also will be times where you would have to run dedicated, like a new service upgrade, in order to meet the load capacity of adding charging stations. So both of those scenarios work on the level 2 side. So what we're doing is we're providing rebates to offset the cost of the chargers themselves, so meaning the hardware, as well as the actual installation costs, which is called make-ready costs. So as you can see from this chart, there's what we call 2 different types of projects or properties, and we separate them out into baseline or underserved. And so the link in blue is essentially a map that the state of Connecticut has created to show what communities, what towns and cities, or what census tracts within certain towns and cities would meet this definition of underserved. And so if your business is within an area that is considered underserved, you would qualify for higher rebates. But to just talk through some of these areas here, there are different minimum requirements for the number of ports, whether it's multifamily or public destination or workplace. And so for multifamily and public, it's a minimum of 2 ports, so meaning 2 charging station ports could come off of one pedestal, or they could be isolated separately, but it's 2 chargers that can work simultaneously, charge 2 cars at once. So minimum of 2 ports for multifamily and public, and workplaces in a minimum of 4 ports. And so as you can see here, here's some of the rebate amounts of up to $20,000 for level 2, up to $150,000 for DC fast, up to $40,000 for if it's underserved level 2, and up to $250,000 if it's an underserved for DC fast. So let me just explain what that cost covers. So on the right-hand side of this screen, that those rebate amounts can cover up to 50% of the cost of the chargers themselves, and up to 100% of the cost of the installation or make-ready cost. So make-ready includes things like can include site design and engineering. It can include permitting, panels, breakers or meter enclosure upgrades, conduit and cable running, those trenching, backfill, restoration, or if you're running a new service, it can cover the cost of any costs that are associated working with Eversource or United Illuminating to run the new service to those areas. And on the left-hand side, we do have a list of qualified chargers. And so we've essentially created this list by vetting products to make sure that they meet certain criteria for our program, either from a safety perspective or from the standpoint of, as Paul mentioned in his presentation, of making sure that the chargers have certain software capabilities to share data. And so the ability to share data will allow us to understand the patterns so that we can work with certain businesses on, if necessary, curtailing load for demand response events to make sure that we have a reliable grid. So I just wanted to talk through 2 examples here. These are not real examples of actual projects, but are similar to what might be seen, but are just wanted to give some examples of how things might play out from an incentive and from a cost perspective. So just a moment, because my view is blocked by something here. Okay, thank you. So we have, I gave 2 examples, one of a public parking garage and one of a gas station, one using level 2 charging. And so the way that our program works is it does allow for one location to have multiple sites. So here, as you can see here, it says 3 sites. So what this specific project decided to do is it has a 6-level parking garage, and on 3 of the levels, so 3 of the 6 levels, they put 2 charging ports on 3 of the 6 levels. And so for each 2-port charging station, they received $20,000 for each of those. So $60,000 total for the rebate. And the cost was $90,000 total. And the charger cost $30,000. The make ready $60,000, like the installation cost. And so the final out-of-pocket cost was $30,000. And then the example here of hopefully a gas station opportunity, Greenwich installing a DC fast charger with two charging ports, $200,000 in cost, $40,000 for the chargers itself. And again, one of the main reasons why direct current fast charge requires a much more expensive cost for the make-ready installation is that there's more that goes into the infrastructure upgrade from a electrical capacity with the loads and with running transformer and separately metered service and the size of that service. So costs involved in that, but as you can see, after the rebate, the costs are really not as significant. I did want to mention just a few other things before.
Actually, real question,
yeah.
from the audience. Is there any program for residential installations?
Yes, and so I wasn't going to go over that today, but I have added it to the appendix of this presentation, which will go out. And so we do have a program for residential. It is offering up to $1,000 per home for a level 2 charger and the installation to run the wiring upgrade for a level 2 charger. So that's one option, is you install an eligible charger that's on our qualified list that we would provide you up to $1,000. Or if you have a vehicle that has telematics as part of the onboard technology, we would give you an enrollment incentive of up to $100 or $100, and then we would pay you $200 per year to participate in our demand response program. That kind of oversimplifies the offer, but just wanted to mention real quick what some of the rebates are for on the residential side, and I'll add that to this presentation. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this because Chuck covered it in his presentation, but there is a specific special EV rate rider or EV rate that Eversource offers that has a reduced demand charge for EV charging stations that are level 2 or DC fast chargers that have separately metered service installed. So this blue here is a link, if you click on it, to our website. Chuck also shared it that explains what that reduced rate would be so that you can figure out the financials for your business and see what the ROI is on installing charging stations and what the charging costs would be over time. So lastly, just wanted to mention two things of kind of how you get started and what the process is. So if you have a project and you're planning a project, you can get a proposal or scope of work or start a design, engineering, or it could be as simple as you're coming off of an existing electrical panel and looking to put in like a 2 or 4 port level 2 charging stations that might not require necessarily a full engineering or as complex design, and you get that scope of work and you would submit it with an application that we have on our website, and we would review that and provide you an incentive reservation letter. And then you would complete the installation, submit the invoices and required documentation. Excuse me. And then we would, sometimes we do a post inspection, not always. And then we send you a rebate check. A couple other good things to note is we do, as mentioned before, it's very important to understand where electrical capacity is available in different parts of the state. So we do have a link here to a map that Eversource hosts that shows what capacity is available and down to a specific address. So if you type in an address on this map, you can see if you're gonna, looking to put a DC fast charge station in with, 150 kilowatts of, demand. It's, would be important to check these types of things, but you can also reach out to our new service department as well. So on the second link here, service requests for Eversource. This is a service request form where you can start the process of determining what the cost is that's involved in running new service, if it's available, and also what the timeline would be for that type of project that you're planning. So these are some important things to note. And lastly, these are just some links to the program applications and more information with program guides and who the support folks are for Eversource and United. Thank you, everybody. Is there any other questions at this time?
We got a couple of questions on there might be appropriate to ask right real quick, which is one of them was a question from the audience. Will the EV rate rider program be expiring in April?
Not that I'm aware of, no. It's meant to be an ongoing offer to customers specifically for this program, or for folks that, not necessarily the program, but you don't have to participate in the program to take advantage of the rate rider. It is available, and my understanding is it's continuing.
Well, thanks, Enoch, and apologies for mispronouncing your name. I have only been on 3 different presentations like this with you recently, and so I've been saying Lengi, which I like better than Lenge. That's just me.
No problem.
Sounds like you do Nordic racing. Okay, well, let's move on to our final presenter here, who's really going to bring it all together, because Michael Frisby is in the business of making money selling energy. And Michael, you are really innovating in some of the ways that you are providing energy options along with other things throughout the state of Connecticut. Makes me want to jump in the car and go there. So let's follow with you.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Anthony, for having me. I'm glad to be on this panel. I'm glad that you thought of me that way. And I know the other panelists have a lot of great knowledge, and I'm using that because we're in the public-private partnerships that we're using to help to foster this program. I'm glad to be a leader in it. So I'm the owner of Noble Energy Real Estate Holdings and Noble Gas Inc. We're based out of Hartford, Connecticut. Our offices are actually above a Noble Automobile Refueling Center, which has a level 2 charger in it, downtown Hartford. What I see as part of the future of transportation, and the car manufacturers have embraced this, is the electric vehicles. And I've looked at the hydrogen vehicles, electric vehicles. Obviously, I'm in the gas station convenience store business. And what I try to do is think ahead and try to be able to design and build something for my customers. And what does that mean? And for me, that means fuel in general. So is it gas? Is it diesel? Is it electric? Is it hydrogen? And I think, the Greenwich has a great opportunity because I think they have more than 10% of all the EV cars in the whole state of Connecticut already in their community. So if you're a business owner in that community and you're thinking this way, I'd love to help or support that and try to think outside the box so we can build this together. We have 12 locations in Connecticut, and we're growing fast. We want to build 20 to 30 more over the next 4 to 5 years. What I have in my network is some of the existing stations that you may see in Greenwich, but I also build new to industry locations. So really designing for the future. And what we take into consideration for the existing locations is, do we have ample service? Do we need a new service? What are we providing in the markets that we service right now? With the new to industry locations, we're able to design and build for the future. And what I mean by that is we're designing stations now that have, gas, diesel, with the EV, the ability for the EV DC fast chargers under a canopy. So our customers will have the same type of experience, and it's not set in the back of an old gas station somewhere where they can actually, feel. And we're also building for the future. So when the technology changes, like it's changing so quickly now, that we'll be ready for that. Some of the key things as far as my business is concerned is finding the right site. And with range anxiety being such a big part of, buying and owning an EV car, I'm hopeful to be able to create that infrastructure throughout Connecticut that will help, limit that range anxiety. So people like myself, who is in the car a lot all day long, have the ability, to get the services, the fast charges when I need it. Our business is a habitual business. So when you're driving around town and you need, coffee or a sandwich or a convenience store item or gas, I look at this as a huge opportunity for gas station owners to be able to be part of this business where they can offer this service. It does come with an investment, but one of the things that I see, let me see if I can flip my screen here, serving our communities is important to us. The multi-use projects, one of the outside of the box thinking, this is our downtown Hartford location. In downtown Hartford, the city of Hartford did not want a gas station, convenience store. They wanted high-end condos and want people to live downtown, but they didn't have the services. And over a number of years and working with them, I created a way where we could give them both. We could give them a nice looking building that cleaned up part of the neighborhood, that offers the services that the downtown area needs in a higher level space. And we won a Connecticut Main Street Award for our design here and bringing that out. Let's see. We do have a level 2 charger in downtown Hartford. We're planning for growth as there are more cars in the marketplace. We have enough space to allow for the DC fast chargers. We want to add those in. We provide this service right now. There's a couple things. We provide this service right now as for free for the customers in Hartford. Hartford is an underserved market. We see it as an amenity for those customers in the Hartford market. We're hopeful that, with the partnership with Eversource and Juice Bar, and when we put in the faster chargers, we'll be able to get to a point where we can actually charge for that service and create a profit center. I think the businesses in Greenwich would have the same opportunity if they can create profit centers by providing a service like this for a customer base that's already in tune with the EV cars. I think it's important for you to reach out to the folks that are involved, like Juice Bar or Eversource. The other thing that is important to me as a property owner and a business owner is we branded this EV charger Noble. There are partnerships out there where people can come and lease space on your property and provide you with that service, so you don't have to do anything. But for me, I want, if something happens to that charger because it's not maintained or it doesn't work, then I'm responsible for that. My customer doesn't know the difference. So they come into somebody's store and they'll say, hey, the charger's not working. The attendant may say, well, it's not my responsibility. Call the 800 number. Or, I'm sorry, it doesn't work. I brand it because I want my customers to understand that I'm responsible for that, and I want to make sure that it works. As far as the future is concerned, I really believe that the future of transportation is here. It's going to take a couple of years to be more mainstream, but if people could, the demographics that they showed earlier, if people could get their hands on and drive EV cars, I think they would. One of the things this picture depicts is I'm approved, and I'm going to be building the first of its kind electric vehicle discovery center in New England. And it's going to be a truly educational facility for folks to be able to come in and learn about electric vehicles, to be able to test drive electric vehicles, to be able to understand the technology when it comes to charging it at home or charging it on the street or at a commercial space. So we like to think that we're a leader in this as well, and we're really excited about what that may bring for the future. That's pretty much in a nutshell, Anthony. If there's something else that I can, to help provide for the folks on the webinar, I'd be happy to answer any questions or take comments.
That's great. Thank you very much, Michael. We do have a few questions queued up, so let's just get into it. And folks, since this is the Q&A time, jump in the Q&A, and we'll get your questions answered again. This might be one that you could help with. Somebody's asking whether Starbucks is getting into this with the DCFC EV station business. He says it seems like people won't want to sit at a gas station for 20 to 30 minutes for a charge.
That's a great question. I think it's challenging when you think of a typical gas station convenience store, right? Because the business model is you get your stuff and you go. What I see in the industry and what I'm trying to build in our new to industries is an opportunity for folks to be able to get a breakfast or a coffee, get breakfast or coffee, get a grinder, get an ice cream, have some indoor seating, have some outdoor seating, create a venue where people, it's not get in, get out. I know it's still, habitual, still fast moving, but with the DC fast chargers now, you're looking at 18 to 22 to maybe 30 minutes to top off and get a really good charge. That gives you the time to go and use the facilities, get a coffee, relax a little bit. Maybe come to a location after a ball game and get something there. So I think that's the future of where it's going, where I think the existing locations, sometimes it might be easier just to get that fast charge and get going. And as the technology changes, I think more and more folks will be doing that.
Related, someone asked this question. He said, I don't think any public or private EV charging companies currently are making a profit because utilization is too low. He says the only ones that come close to making a profit sell ads on thetheir chargers. When and how do you think they will be profitable, or should they be considered a public good?
Well, I think I touched on it earlier. I think we're doing it for the benefit of the public today, but as there are more and more cars on the roads, then it'll start turning into a profit center. And what I see, and Chuck touched on this, it's like you're looking at a per kilowatt, charge to create a margin similar to what we do with gasoline now. You create a margin so that, you're passing it on to the consumer, but you're also creating a profit center. And until the time when there's enough cars on the road, I think it's going to be an investment in the future, but we'll get there.
And Paul,
Yeah,
I
if
don't
I
know if
could
you want to jump in here. I was going to ask Paul first, Chuck, but
absolutely.
Paul, you're seeing a lot of clients, and do you see them looking at this as a high risk situation, or are they actually finding it something that that they'll be able to make profit on you?
Yes, there is profit to be made, but it's not going to be an awful lot. So people look at the soft benefits, the attraction of the lease tenants, the folks that come to the commercial property saying, hey, no charger, no lease, things like that. So it's an important amenity. I tell people, you're not going to buy that condo in St. Martin from the profit off of your charging stations.
That's a shame, because St. Martin's a great place to be. Chuck, you wanted to chime in here.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of get back to the notion of, you've got venues that are more suited to one type of charging intensity, if you will, or speed than others. And I think what we're also going to see is people are accustomed with their vehicles to seeing a range of prices for different grades of fuel. And I think that that's potentially a paradigm that can be applied here in terms of how fast and how much charge you get per minute or per block of 10 minutes. That has an open end for monetizing this. I also think that it's likely, we may not have believed it yet, but I think it's likely that the trend line is going to be that the cost per mile for fuel-based, fossil fuel-based versus electricity are going to diverge. So there's going to be an increasing opportunity for margin off of electric vehicle charging versus gasoline, in terms of what the cost to the customer is going to go up faster on gasoline than it has to get an increasing margin out of electrical. That said, where we sit right now, the gap between level 2 charging and DC fast charging, or the Tesla superchargers, and I purposely use this Tesla supercharger as the state of the art example in terms of the intensity. That 60 kilowatt hours in 20 minutes is enough to give you a range of 240 miles on that vehicle. The point is that year over year, those performance metrics are going to improve with electric vehicles. So you'll be able to get a higher range on a same or shorter charge duration, but the intensity of use from the electrical grid or from your resources at your site are the things that are going to go up. So managing that, how much can I generate myself? How much can I store that I've maybe collected at a low cost time and a low volume time, is going to give you the opportunity to manage those costs from the utility. I guess not to go too far, but the last key point that I think that last question raised was, how many vehicles do I have to charge before I'm making money? And I think that's a really interesting question. I did my pricing model based on, how many ports do I have? How many cars do I think I can charge in a 3-hour rush hour in the morning and the afternoon, and then the rest of the day? And I came up with something like 60 vehicles a day. I don't think anybody's getting 60 vehicles a day at one location yet, but 23 million vehicles, you start to get there. At 16-to-1 ratio right now, you can see a path to that. Hope that helps.
That brings up this question, which is, and I'll open this up to the panel. Is there a first mover advantage here? Obviously, Michael, you think so, or you wouldn't be in the business. But is there, some kind of opportunity window that could, narrow if I, as a business owner, choose to wait?
Mike, do you want to take that one first? I have a couple of thoughts, but I don't want to steal your thunder.
No, that's okay. No, I absolutely believe that the first one in wins when it comes to this, especially if it's done correctly. If you put in, a high quality juice bar level 2 to start, and people come to you because of that, and then you add on and put the DC fast chargers in, and they get a good customer experience where they know it works, they know they have a good quality place to get that charge, then that's great. The second part of that is, and Enoch touched on this, there's a limited amount of capacity in the grid unless you're using solar and battery storage, which we're trying to implement into our new to industry locations. So, if there's only a limited amount of capacity on that roadway, then you're the first one in, you're going to get it.
Yep.
And
that's true.
I was just going to mention one other thing. I completely agree with Michael. And I think that what we've learned over the years with running other programs that are funded either by state or federal is that as things become more adopted or either have some type of policy or federal regulation required to them, the incentives and rebates tend to drop. We've seen this, with like tax credits and Energy Star and things like that. So as it becomes, part of our, kind of accepted and everyday living and business, those kinds of things tend to drop over time. Will it happen, quickly and dramatically? No, because this is still a new, industry, but something to consider that, over time that will change.
Actually, to you, a question here to you: can I apply for a rebate if my project already started construction?
So if it's on the commercial side, the answer is it depends. So it just depends on how far along you are. If the chargers are not installed yet, then the answer is probably yes. If they're already installed, the answer is probably no. But I can put my contact information in the follow-up, and if you want to reach out to me, or in the information that's on the PowerPoint, you can follow up and we can touch base on that.
This one here, Paul, to you. What's the price for each charger cost before any incentives or rebates?
That's a great question. And I tell people somewhere around 5,000 is a good ballpark number. They can go up as high as $7,000 and down lower to as little as about $3,000, but you sacrifice quality when you get down to the really low cost ones. And in most commercial outdoor settings, you want to go with heavy duty.
This one here is for you, Michael. If you leave your car and go into a venue, how would you ensure that the car is safe? In other words, that there's preventative measures so someone can't unplug the charger from the vehicle while you're in a store?
Well, that's a good question, because in any market, it's hard to police things. Hopefully, you have a good management team to keep an eye on things, because that kind of stuff can happen. I hope that most people are good people and they wouldn't do that, but you really can't prevent people from tampering with that. So point in case, if you were to put your charger in the back corner of a lot, that's not well lit and not in a good spot, chances are that, folks aren't going to utilize it as much. If you can make it more focal and more central, what we try to do is keep everything in front of us, right? So we can see and manage in that regard. So it's a tough question to answer, because there are really nothing stopping someone from bad behavior.
It doesn't sound like you have a lot of experience, though, in your places to date.
Well, we're fortunate. I mean, the chargers that we do have, we get folks that come here for quite a while, and they plug it in, and we haven't had any bad experiences. Now, it's only been, a few months, several months now that we've had some data to look at, but we haven't had any incidents.
Not to be flip, but I was going to say this might be the one case where New Jersey has it right with attendance mandatory still.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I was just going to mention, I'm not sure if this is 100% accurate, but I think that if somebody's paying for a charge and it's plugged in, I think it's not like somebody can take that charge and steal it or plug it into their vehicle. Is that correct? So meaning the only reason that they would tamper with it is just to ruin somebody's charge. It's not like they're gaining anything from stealing, their charge. Is that accurate or no?
As long as you close your car, lock your car, nobody can pull this out. So basically, once you charge, even if you leave your car for 10 hours, nobody can do anything about it. So it's safe. Once you plug in, you are plugged in.
And that's Alex Mock, who is in charge of the Sustainability Committee here in the town of Greenwich and who put this panel together. Paul?
I can add that a Tesla is different from that. So the Tesla will actually lock that adapter, and you could conceivably unplug the juice bar. I know someone that works down at the Yale campus in New Haven, and a lot of the Teslas have Sentry mode, so you can see if somebody's tampering with your car. And Jennifer Boyle sent me a picture of somebody just walking through the garage who reached over and unplugged her for no reason at all.
And if I know, I'm sorry, I was going to say Elon Musk very well, he probably has some way to laser attack that individual at some point on the drawing board. Question about Teslas here is, will the Tesla EV charging station be eligible for a rebate, Enoch?
So the Tesla, both commercial and residential, they're not currently listed on our qualified product list, but it doesn't mean that they can't be in the future. It's just a matter of we only received submission from certain companies initially, but that qualified product list is something that we open up quarterly for new products to be submitted to. So there is definitely a chance that chargers will be added. And so, just to clarify though, there is certain criteria and qualifications both on the commercial side and the residential side that charger manufacturers and software providers have to meet in order to get on the list.
Was Tesla rejected?
Well, I don't think it's. I mean, no, it's not. It's not like that. It's just there was a very short window of time in the beginning of launching this that respondents responded, and we're happy to have more respondents and add more chargers to the list. So it's just a matter of time. But no, not by any means.
So a question possibly for you, Chuck, or maybe Alex. What is the opposition, if any, from local governments throughout Connecticut to having chargers installed in public venues like malls or arenas and things?
So I have some limited exposure here. I'm not going to say I'm a statewide expert by any means. I have not run into any. I think it's more a case of sort of going through the process that Enoch laid out with the utility and communicating proactively that this is something you're trying to do. And I think in almost every case that I've seen, it's viewed as a benefit and an attraction rather than as something that people don't want to have happen. And this is for myself in a community which the Chamber of Commerce members have resisted bike racks because they don't want to interfere with pedestrian flow. So it's been an interesting sort of admixture of the business community being having to be educated as to the economic benefits of progressive feature or something like that. But Alex, I'm not sure, you may be able to talk to the Greenwich area in particular. I haven't seen anything that suggests that the community or the municipal government is going to balk at a commercial enterprise putting in charging stations.
Right, and I agree with you. We are supporting, the town of Greenwich is supporting charging stations. We understand that we have to go and get ready for the EVs, and are coming in large numbers, especially in Greenwich. So we would like to accommodate this. The fact that we don't have that many of them is the cost mostly, but also one thing you have to consider in Connecticut, there's a regulation that none other cars than EVs can park on the designated areas where you have those chargers. So that's whenever you have limited limited parking area, you have to think about it, because as we were talking about, whether or not somebody cannot unplug you, this has pluses and minuses, because if you have a car which can actually log the charging cable in, then basically you have to wait for this person to vacate the charging area before you can plug in your car. You have to also think about the fact that if those parking areas are too close to the building, then most likely people will violate the law and they will park there, because everybody would like to be parked as close to the entrance as possible. So that's another thing to think about when you're planning for those charging stations. But just summarizing, Town of Greenwich is in huge support of those charging stations and would like to see more of them.
Another question related to this is, if you're in an apartment building, underground garage, is there an increased hazard of fire, et cetera? Or is this just like another plug? So, Paul, maybe you have a sense of that.
It hasn't been a fear, but recently there were some Chevys that caught fire and there was a recall for the vehicle. And when that happened, there was a flurry of emails to me from residential clients that had chargers in their garage underneath the residential building saying, hey, we want to move our chargers outdoors. But that is literally the only time that I've ever had that. And since there's been a recall, they fixed that problem. But I do get that question more now after the Chevys caught on fire.
Exploding Chevys.
Yeah, it's really is.
That's my adjective, not Paul's.
Say, Paul, did you get any further detail on that, whether it was the battery or the consequence of being plugged in and actively charging?
Something to do with the inverter on board, so the charger
Okay.
itself, and they fixed it. They had a recall.
Yep. Okay.
So it is a concern, but haven't seen a lot of it. There are no actual real fires. I mean, it was 1 or 2 cases, right? So it's not something that's spread out across the US.
Here's a question for you, Paul. How does the juice bar charger accept payments, and how do we know how much we are making per charge or day?
Sure, that is through an app on your phone that the driver downloads, or the driver, he or she could call an 800 number, which is posted on the side of the station. And the property manager has a dashboard inside in the office, and they have the ability to set their rate. So let's say they're paying Eversource or UI 18 cents a kilowatt. They can go ahead and just add a small margin on there. They might go up to 23 or 25 cents a kilowatt. In some areas, some parts of the country, people actually charge by the hour. It's not really the most effective way to do it, but if in some areas you're not allowed to resell electricity where you can charge by the kilowatt, they'll go ahead and rent the space by the hour.
This one, I think we may already know the answer to it, but I'll just ask it anyway. What's the best setup for a home charging system if there's both a Tesla and Chevy Volt in the house?
You want me to answer that one for you, Paul, just based on today's webinar?
Yeah, go ahead. I
Yeah,
hate
I
to
know the
hog
answer
the.
too.
I think that would be, what is it, the 32 volt dual cable level 2 charger, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, readily
Or the
available.
32 amps, sorry. Yeah, the 320.
Exactly. Yeah, there's some that have been on the market for a long, long time, like Clipper Creek, that are really, really good units. And there's a lot of new ones that are just now entering the market. And you have a lot of choices in that buy. And they're pretty much a charger is a charger is a charger. However, I will add that on the utility side, there's right now a managed program where you go ahead and there's a different time of use rate per time of day. And more you're going to see it move towards a managed use where the actual charger is hooked up, kind of like your Nest thermostat, where the utility can throttle it up or throttle it down for demand response.
Yep. It's an interesting question based on the notion that you want to have two cars plugged in at the same time. Presumably that's sort of behind the question. And so, on the one hand, you've got the adapter that comes with a Tesla, so you can use the universal charger from the physical connection, the port. But then the other is, you're multiplying your load to your residential service by 2. So for now, that's going to go more to that your panel's appropriately sized and your service can handle it, and that your charging is going to be slower, most likely.
Got a couple more questions in just a minute or so. So quick answer. What's the typical cost to purchase or install a level 2 indoors as compared to outdoors, including the fact that new electrical have to be extended outdoors, hopefully nearby?
It's now you're talking about materials. So the cost of conduit and copper has tripled and quadrupled lately. So think closest to the power is always the most economical. And once you're outdoors, you have to trench. You don't want to trench through asphalt. You'd rather trench through landscape. It's easy to backfill and plant grass, but it's a lot harder to fix pavement and asphalt.
And we'll leave you with it's really almost a rhetorical question here. One of the guests says, I just read an article about Volta charging, an EV charging company's business model is based on advertising on a 55-inch screen on the chargers in public places. Maybe there's a business model there where the business owners, get a percentage of the advertising inventory for their own use. It certainly sounds like we've got a lot of different types of setups that that a business owner can engage in. Clearly, the advertising model there is probably designed to offer the business the ability to get the charger for free or for reduced costs while the advertising is delivered to the consumer. So, but I want to say to everybody, I just want to say to everybody, thank you so much. And on behalf of Alex Mock and Laura, who put this together, and the Conservation Commission, Sustainability Committee, and the Chamber of Commerce, really appreciate everybody's attendance. We had just about everybody stay the entire time. And thank you so much to all of our guests. Laura, do you have anything to say about how you'll get the slides to guests or the recording of the presentation, just how that'll be available?
Sure. So anyone who registered through the Greenwich Library website, I'll email you the link to the video as soon as it's available. If you did not register through the Greenwich Library website and you'd like the link to the video, you could email me at lmatthews, MATTHEWS @greenwichlibrary.org, and I'll get the link to you.
Terrific.
It will also be available on Greenwich Library's YouTube channel. So in a few days, you could look for it there.
That's great. Well, thanks to everybody and really appreciate it. And it's really kind of exciting. A new frontier, lots of opportunities possible here. Take care.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank
Thanks.
you, everyone.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you all.